I said this many times. As much as people dislike Trump, they dislike DC politicians even more.
Well, that's where Trump was politically and strategically brilliant. I believe he was the first Republican person running for president who realized that America has become an oligarchy, that oligarchies are unstable, and if we're not careful, this oligarchy is going to disintegrate and the Democrats are going to take it back. I'm small d Democrats. And it's ripe to be turned into a police state. Because, I mean, he's following Orban's playbook. He's following Putin's playbook. He's following Hitler's playbook. This is not a secret, how to do this. Right? It's happened over and over again. One thing I did want to mention, you said, if I may, about the virus. I wrote about this over at medium.com. April 7th, we have to remember April 7th. This was a critical turning point that is almost never discussed, at least in the white community, in urban radio and black radio. You will hear this discussed frequently, and most white people I know are completely unaware of this. In March, throughout March and the first week of April, Jared Kushner and a bunch of guys, they had this whole little committee they put together. They were going to do something. They were going to do something about the virus. They were working on a production order to increase masks and PPE. They were ordering stuff from all around the world. The post office had a plan on the books. They'd already put in the request for proposals and the initial purchase orders to send 5 masks to every family in America. I mean, they were moving. And suddenly on April 7th, the headline at the top of the New York Times and at the top of the Washington Post, and the story that led NBC, ABC, CBS, MSNBC, and CNN and Fox, was that a new study was just published finding that while black people are less than 20% of the population, they're more than 40% of the deaths. And at that moment in the Trump White House, within 1 week, they did a complete 180. Oh, it's just black people dying? And mostly and exclusively in blue states? And that, I believe, and I in my article, I document all the links, and the exact same thing happened on conservative media. Rush Limbaugh made a 180 that week, as did all of the other right-wingers on radio. Prior to April 7th, they were like, oh, there's something going on. We need to pay attention to this. Let's not get crazy about it. But after April 7th, this is just like the flu. I don't think most people realize how deep racial animus is in the white supremacist Republican Party. But it's there and it's huge.
Yeah.
And that is why I believe the only person who can salvage the Republican Party, because I do think that both parties are going through a transitional period right now, but I definitely believe that the person who will carry Trump's mantle, if given the opportunity, is Rick Scott. I don't think there is anybody who is more capable. I think he has all the credentials to do it. He basically runs Florida, former governor, current U.S. senator, exceptionally wealthy, an exceptional criminal, I might add. He
the largest Medicare scam in the history of the world.
Yeah.
Fifth Amendment 75 times. And yet he is, I don't know how to describe. He is,
I call him Voldemort.
But he is, Tom, you've been following politics for 5 decades, maybe more. He is a phenomenal politician. He really is.
He is.
And
no, I agree. I absolutely agree. He wouldn't be where he is if he wasn't.
I remember when he gave his victory speech back in 2018, and I just thought that's why he wins, because he just knows how to do it.
And
he's got the all sucks thing down too.
He can shed the tear. He can talk about his mother. He can speak in Spanish fluently, like really well.
It's a big
deal. And it's just, again,
you can see this, like you see it coming before it actually happens. Like, you know, where the Democratic establishment is trying to position their chess pieces on the board right now between, you know, obviously Kamala and Buttigieg. It's like, you just know. After a while, you kind of get hip to the game. I just hope enough people are getting hip to it to recognize that necessary change is coming, but it's got to come from the right people. And so I do want to throw a little wrinkle in, because she's obviously the person that we think is the leader of the progressive movement. How important is it to get Nina Turner into the United States Congress?
I think it's really important. Nina, I know Nina. You know, Louise and I have had meals with her and her husband. She's spectacular. She's there are not enough superlatives. She's solid. She's smart. She has legislative experience. She worked her way up in the Ohio legislature. But let's not succumb to savior complex. To this idea that one person is going to save us. We have to, all of us, have to get active inside the Democratic Party and turn this thing around. And people whose politics, people who have the political skill set, who have the ability to give a public speech, who would like that kind of work. It would make me crazy. I could never be a politician, but there are some people who like that. And those people who are progressive need to be running for office. School board, town council, a county clerk, state representative, and ultimately U.S. Congress. And we need to be building this thing right across the board. And Nina's a great part of that, and she's a huge advocate for that too. She's a real grassroots up person.
Yeah, she's one of those people that I know would step out and support somebody who's challenging an incumbent when no one else does. Somebody who will say, "Yeah, I know." I that is something that I think we really need, are people that are willing to really speak up once they're in power to help other people get into that position. And I mean, that's something that I noticed as a candidate, is how few people that are willing to actually put their neck out, even though they support you behind the scenes. And that's a problem. That's a big problem. And that's a problem I have with the Democratic Party in general, is how they treat democracy within their own sandbox, because they're not very democratic when it comes to primaries.
Yeah.
And that's a big problem. And that, I think, is a big turnoff to a lot of people. And it has pushed a lot of people outside of the Democratic Party and into this whole sphere of whether it's People's Party, the Green Party. And that's where the left is going, because the Democrats have moved so far to the right. And that's
what part of the country you're talking about. But I get what you're saying. But the thing that I think some people miss is that a political party is not really supposed to be a democracy. A political party is a club. And if enough of us, and this is the amazing thing, if I was to tell you, hey, we can take over NBC, all we have to do is get enough people to show up, a multi-billion-dollar corporation, and we can literally take over management of it and program the network however we want. It would be like, whoa, how do I do that? Well, here's this multi-billion-dollar corporation called the Democratic Party that's capable of passing legislation from the federal level all the way down to your zoning, your local county, and it's wide open. The doors are open. You can just walk in and take it over. And because it's a club and not a democracy, I mean, yeah, they'll vote on things and, majority is supposed to rule. But really, because it's a club, the people who represent the majority within the club are pretty much going to take it over, and they're pretty much going to push out the people who disagree with them. And with the rise of Clinton in the 90s, the Democratic Party started shedding the LBJ progressives and the anti-war movement as well, that I was part of, and began embracing Jamie Dimon type banking fat cats. Now the Democratic Party, and this has been going on for a decade slowly, but I'd say in the last 4 years it's really sped up, and Bernie Sanders is probably the main reason. Although in this last cycle you could add Elizabeth Warren to that mix, which means now, hey, it's getting more diverse, it's getting more. The base is even broader. We have 2 progressive political candidates for president. That's a huge thing inside the Democratic Party. It wouldn't have happened in 92. It wouldn't have happened in 96. It wouldn't have happened in 2000. Frankly, I don't think it would have happened until maybe 2012. So if we can get enough of us inside and take over, it'll be a hell of a lot easier than trying to build an external party from the ground up. And history shows that because we don't have proportional representation in the United States, we're one of only 7 democracies in the world that doesn't have proportional representation. Therefore, whenever, as a consequence of that, whenever a third party arises, it always takes a bite out of the party that it's closest to philosophically. And that can be a very suicidal thing to do politically.
Thanks for watching. If you want to support our mission to transform politics into service, please like this video, subscribe, follow us on social media, and consider joining our Patreon, where you'll get early access to our interviews as well as other exclusive content. Links are in the description. Peace out.